Data, data, data. It's so important, especially when we're coming into a recession. So here's a handful of companies that have either done a full hiring freeze or have already started to lay off employees. Apple, Facebook, Spotify, Redfin, Compass, Coinbase, Intel, Tesla, Nvidia, Netflix, Lyft, Wayfair, Uber, Carvana, Twitter, Apple, again, Robinhood, DoorDash, and Peloton. That's a lot of companies. Now, granted, most of these are in the tech industry, and typically we see the biggest impact during a recession in the tech industry. But still, when we're talking about data points and potentially heading into a recession, man, this is a big indicator that we are heading in that direction. Consumer sentiment is super low right now, which is basically the measurement of how well people feel about the economy. And I think this is a direct reflection of that data. People are getting scared. They're seeing, the big storm cloud in the distance. And so they're starting to, these companies are starting to put up shutters over their windows and stock up a bunch of food because the storm's about to hit. Right now, I think it's just precautionary. They're just making sure, hey, if we do get into a recession, we're going to be prepared for it because we're not going to have an oversupply of our employees where we're going to have to start doing layoffs. But if this trajectory continues, it could be very likely that we start seeing layoffs in the very near future. If we look at the current unemployment rate, let's see here. So right now, we're down here. So this was most recently updated on June of 2022. So if we go all the way to June, we're looking at 3.6, which is pretty much like an all-time record low over the last 10 years. And the all-time low was, 3.5 back in January of 2020. Then we had just this ridiculous spike during COVID where we jumped up to 14.7% only, gosh, what was it called? What was it called when you were an important worker? If you were an essential worker. So that's what that 14.7 was. But I mean, if we go back all the way to 2008, it peaked, at 10%. So being at an all-time record low is a pretty good sign that with this being a cyclical market or a cyclical trend with unemployment, that we are going to start seeing a trend back up in unemployment. And with all of these tech companies leading the way on hiring freezes, I mean, that's tens of thousands of jobs that aren't going to be available to either new people entering the workforce. There's going to be less movement internally. So we're going to start seeing this start tick up a little bit. Now, here's something that might be a little far-fetched, but it's important to keep in mind. We just had a bunch of people buy homes at a very high interest rate, probably pushing, a $2,800, $3,100, $3,500 a month mortgage, thinking that, hey, I'll probably be pretty secure in my job for the near future. I can afford a $3,500 a month payment. But what if layoffs actually do start? There is a possibility that those people that just recently bought a home could be laid off, not be able to afford their mortgage payment, and will have to foreclose on their home. If there are enough layoffs, we're going to see foreclosures start to tick back up, and the housing market is going to take even a bigger hit than it has recently with the increase in mortgage rates. So all of that is speculation, but still I think a valid point to consider, especially if you're thinking about, maybe buying an investment property right now. There's still a lot of unknown in the market. And typically that's when investors take a little bit of a back seat to see what's going to happen before making any big decisions. We are probably going to see a 75 basis point rise in, here at the end of this month. So if you really need to get a place, you should probably try to get the ball rolling very fast. But if you've got some time and you're just kind of trying to decide when the best time to jump into the market is, personally, I think I'm going to wait a little bit. I want to see how the market responds to the next interest rate hike and see if some of these hiring freezes move into industries that are a little bit more recession-proof, like healthcare, food, consumer staples, all of that. If we start seeing those companies do hiring freezes and maybe some layoffs, that's probably a good sign that we're heading into a pretty significant recession, and therefore it might be worth waiting even a little while longer before making any real estate investments. So those are just my thoughts. I don't want to wait too long on the sidelines. I'm not waiting until, 2024 potentially, to see how this plays out. I'm thinking maybe 2 to 3 months to see how the market's going to respond to these, upcoming changes. And hopefully that'll give some more clarity on where our next move should be. But that's all I got for today. So thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.